In the annals of aviation, few stories curdle the blood quite like that of Flight 914, a commercial jet that vanished without a trace in 1955, only to touch down later as if time itself had been fooled. The air traffic controllers swore the plane appeared on their radar out of nowhere, its call sign long deactivated, its passengers unaged, its fuel unspent. The control tower recordings would later reveal voices trembling with disbelief as they guided an aircraft from the past to a runway built decades after it disappeared. But the most chilling discovery came not from the runway, nor the passengers who vanished again before authorities could intervene. It came from the black box, unearthed deep within the wreckage after the second disappearance. What it recorded defied the logic of any clock, any flight plan, any world we understand. This is the story of that recording, of Flight 914, and the sound that should never have been heard again. They said the passengers vanished before the rescue crews arrived, seats still warm, coffee cups half full, luggage untouched. The jet stood silently under the Caribbean sun for less than an hour, before flickering like heat mirage and dissolving into thin air. The only proof of its existence was the melted imprint of its wheels on the tarmac, and the radar logs, which inexplicably deleted themselves minutes later. Yet, when investigators replayed the black box recording, it didn't contain the flight path or cockpit chatter. It contained breathing, whispering. Then, a single message repeated every 37 seconds. "We never landed." Journalists swarmed the airport, but every image they took developed blank. Video reels showed static or distorted shapes of people moving in reverse. Some called it a hoax. Others whispered of temporal displacement, a slip through a corridor of sky where time doesn't flow the same way. Yet the evidence sealed in that black box carried audio that no hoax could mimic. Storm winds whispering coordinates to nowhere. Overlapping voices calling for a tower long demolished. Those who listened to it too long reported hearing their own names, whispered faintly in the static. Decades later, a retired controller confessed that on the night of the reappearance, he received a call on an analog line patched to a frequency decommissioned since 1956. The voice identified itself as Captain Brenner, calm and formal, asking for landing clearance. When the controller asked his position, the reply came, "Over the Caribbean." Estimated time of arrival: 5 minutes ago. The call lasted exactly 37 seconds before cutting to silence. The line stayed open, humming faintly, for years. When the black box was finally decoded in full, the final seconds revealed something no instrument could explain. After Captain Brenner's last Mayday, we see the runway requesting descent. There came a sound of applause. Then, overlapping voices cheering in a language no linguist could identify, followed by silence and the steady ticking of a clock. But the clock wasn't on board. It matched the frequency of the control tower's internal wall clock, one that stopped at 9:14 p.m., the night the plane disappeared in 1955. The government sealed the case within hours. Witnesses were silenced, reports redacted, and the black box labeled as classified under temporal anomalies. But whispers spread fast among radar technicians, air traffic staff, and aviation historians, obsessed with the impossible. Rebecca Lang knew there was more buried beneath those archives. The recordings had layers, multiple timestamps overlaying one another, as if the same flight existed in several moments at once. Each time she replayed the tape, new voices emerged. Some from the 1950s, some from the 1990s, and one that seemed to echo her own. The deeper she listened, the more she realized Flight 914 wasn't lost to time. It had been circling inside it. Rebecca traced the original Pan Am flight logs, discovering something strange. Every pilot who had flown that route before 1955 had reported transient radar gaps, cold drafts and flashes of light in clear skies. Some had even noted hearing Morse code messages from ghost flights. Yet, the most disturbing evidence came from a recovered maintenance journal written by the plane's engineer. Pages describing turbulence that wasn't weather, time readings that looped backward, and a final note scrawled across the margin. The sky's not empty, it remembers. That night, Rebecca dreamt she was inside the plane. The aisles stretched endlessly, looping back into themselves like mirrors. The passengers were still breathing, blinking. Yet none met her eyes. Each row repeated, each face a perfect copy. When she awoke, her bedside clock read 9:14, frozen. The black box lay across the room, its casing faintly glowing. She realized the voices she'd heard weren't random fragments of the past. They were beckoning her aboard. The next morning, Rebecca met with Dr. Elias Moran, a physicist specializing in temporal resonance. He explained the theory. Under rare atmospheric conditions, planes could encounter electromagnetic corridors, spatial folds trapping them between eras like insects in amber. But when she played the black box audio for him, his demeanor changed. His face drained of color as he whispered, "That isn't static. That's heartbeat data." He paused, leaning in toward the recorder. "And it's still alive." Determined to uncover the source, Rebecca took the black box to a remote hangar, the same one where Flight 914 had reappeared decades earlier. As she powered it up, the surrounding air grew heavy, filled with the low-frequency hum of engines that weren't there. Then came the radio call, distorted but unmistakable. "Tower, this is 914, requesting clearance." The sound reverberated through the hangar's metal frame. Rebecca froze, realizing she wasn't just listening to a recording. She was answering one. The signal originated from nowhere on Earth, triangulated to coordinates above the Atlantic Ocean, 200 miles east of Bermuda. The same airspace where Flight 914 vanished in 1955. Rebecca, armed with the black box, and Dr. Moran's spectral scanner boarded a private reconnaissance plane. Their instruments flickered, compasses spun, and the sky itself seemed to ripple like water disturbed by something immense beneath it. Through the haze, a shape began to emerge, metallic, silent, impossibly still. It wasn't just another aircraft. It was Flight 914. Suspended mid-air, as if frozen in time, engines spinning but unmoving. When they drew closer, something pulsed across their instruments, a surge of electromagnetic resonance matching the human heart rate. Rebecca's voice trembled as she radioed the tower. "We have visual on unidentified aircraft, tail N 3000-1794. It's not moving." Silence answered her. Then a second voice came through. Clear, calm, impossibly familiar. "Caracas Tower. This is Flight 914 requesting descent." But the frequency she transmitted on was private, encrypted, and modern. That voice shouldn't have existed. They circled the suspended jet. Every window revealed motionless passengers, as if caught between breaths. Rebecca swore she saw one blink. Dr. Moran began scanning for anomalies, but his device shorted out. Then came a thunderous sound. Not of engines, but of countless voices whispering in unison. The sky fractured with a flash, and suddenly the frozen jet moved, slowly pivoting toward them. Its cockpit lights flared. And for an instant, Captain Brenner's eyes locked with Rebecca's through the glass. He raised a trembling hand as if to wave or warn. The moment lasted seconds before chaos erupted. The radio exploded with overlapping transmissions, dozens of voices repeating landing requests, each time stamped decades apart. Doctor. Morin clutched his headset, shouting over the noise as his instruments melted under magnetic distortion. "They're not flying through time," he gasped. "Time is flying through them." Rebecca looked back. The ocean below shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting stars that didn't belong to their sky. Then, with a deafening roar, Flight 914 accelerated forward, not into the horizon, but into itself, folding into a single point of blinding white. When the light faded, there was nothing. The radar cleared, the sky returned to its normal hue, and the coordinates read empty. Rebecca sat in silence, the black box in her lap, now completely inert. Morin whispered, "We just watched it vanish again." But the recorder blinked once, one faint red light pulsing in rhythm with a heartbeat. Rebecca pressed play. The final transmission echoed softly through the cabin. "Caracas Tower. Passengers safe. Flight time, 37 minutes. The tape clicked. Then a whisper followed. Her own voice, recorded from the future. "Don't let it land again." Back on land, the official report labeled the mission a failure. No visual contact. Atmospheric interference. But Rebecca and Dr. Morin knew what they saw. The data retrieved from their flight recorders defied conventional physics. Timestamps overlapping decades. Radio frequencies repeating like echoes in a canyon. The black box now pulsed faintly at 9:14 each night, sensing with seismic sensors miles away from any flight path. Rebecca's insomnia grew worse. She began hearing the captain's voice not in the recordings, but in her own dream. The line between listening and answering blurred, and somewhere, over the Atlantic, another radar anomaly had just appeared. That night, Rebecca visited the control tower where Flight 914 first reappeared in 1992. It was abandoned now, the radar screens shattered, the air thick with dust and silence. Yet, as she climbed the stairs to the observation deck, she heard faint chatter from a dead radio frequency. Air traffic instructions, laughter, even the faint clinking of coffee cups. It wasn't playback, it was live communication looping endlessly from a frequency decommissioned 4 decades ago. She turned the dial slowly, her breath trembling, and the voice that replied was her own. Dr. Morin's research deepened into forbidden territory. He analyzed the recovered data from their instruments and discovered that each anomaly coincided with solar flare peaks, precisely every 37 years. According to his calculations, the next event would occur in less than a week. He theorized that the corridor Flight 914 entered wasn't a random tear, but a recurring aperture, a loop that opens and closes at fixed intervals. But what he couldn't explain was why the loop was beginning to expand, dragging the present closer to the coordinates of 1955. Rebecca's nightmares worsened. She dreamed of walking the aisles of Flight 914 again. Only this time, every passenger turned to look at her. Identical faces, silent, waiting. The young girl in the window seat finally spoke. "We never left." When Rebecca awoke, she found a Polaroid photo on her desk, a picture of her standing inside the 1955 cabin, though she'd never been there. In her hand within the photo, she was holding the black box, its light brighter than ever. Determined to stop the loop, Rebecca and Dr. Morin arranged one final experiment to transmit a counter-signal through the original 1955 flight frequency, a pulse designed to collapse the temporal aperture permanent. But as the countdown began, the black box activated on its own, overriding their controls. Static filled the room. Then came the captain's voice, calm and composed. "Flight 914 cleared for final approach." Rebecca shouted into the mic, "Abort landing! Do you hear me? Abort!" But her words echoed back, distorted, older, cracked, her own voice from the recording. The counter signal misfired. Instead of collapsing the corridor, it widened it. Across the Atlantic, weather satellites recorded a spiraling vortex. a perfect circle of cloudless sky hovering over the same coordinates where Flight 914 had first disappeared. Rebecca and Dr. Morin were ordered to stand down, but they knew it was too late. Civilian aircraft reported strange visual anomalies, ghostly contrails, flickering radar ghosts, voices on emergency channels calling for landing clearance. Then came the first visual, a commercial jet seen flying against the wind, tail number N301794, gliding silently toward the Caribbean once more. The tower recordings from that day would later reveal two simultaneous conversations, one from the modern control center, and one transmitted on frequencies last used in 1955. Both contained the same request: permission to land, Caracas Tower. The voices overlapped perfectly, out of phase, but synchronized like echoes across time. Rebecca leaned forward, whispering into her headset, "If you land again, it won't just be your time that ends. It'll be ours." But another voice replied from the channel, calm, composed, and unmistakably hers. Then let it end. Where it began, Flight 914 descended again, its landing gear lowering over a runway not built in its era. The tarmac trembled under the distortion, the air shimmering as heat waves twisted light into mirages. Rebecca and Moran raced to the site, watching as the plane materialized fully, this time without flickering. The doors opened slowly. The passengers filed out, one by one, smiling, confused, eyes unaged. And in the cockpit, Captain Brenner waited, looking directly at Rebecca as if expecting her. She stepped closer. But the man who spoke from the stairs had her voice. As Rebecca stepped forward, the air thickened. The figure at the base of the stairs, identical to her, same voice, same eyes, extended a hand. "You were always here," it said softly. "Doctor!" Morin shouted for her to step back, but it was too late. The black box activated on its own, hovering slightly between them, glowing brighter until both figures merged into one silhouette. Then came the sound, not of engines, but of 1,000 ticking clocks, all stopping at once. The sky went dark. When emergency crews arrived, there was no trace of Rebecca, Dr. Morin, or Flight 914. Only a circular burn pattern on the tarmac, identical to the one found in 1955. The radar logs erased themselves within minutes, and the control tower clock stopped permanently at 9:14 p.m. Weeks later, a maintenance worker discovered a single item near the runway's edge. The black box, unscathed, still warm to the touch. When investigators played it back, it contained a single transmission. Rebecca's voice, calm and distant. "This is Flight 914. Requesting permission to depart." Months passed. The story of Flight 914 was buried again, this time deeper. Sealed under national secrecy acts and dismissed as radar malfunction. But the airfield workers whispered about the strange lights that reappeared over the runway at the same time every night. And far from Caracas, in an abandoned coastal observatory, a faint radio transmission began repeating hourly, always the same phrase: "Cleared for departure." Rebecca's family received a final parcel. No return address, no sender, containing her ID badge and a piece of aircraft metal, aged yet uncorroded. When they tested it, the alloy composition didn't exist on any registry before 2030. Dr. Morin was never seen again. His research files were confiscated, and his name erased from public archives, but digital traces remained, encrypted notes sent to a hidden server. One file labeled Echo Pattern 37 revealed a stunning discovery. Every 37 years, energy spikes resembling heartbeat rhythms appeared not only near the Bermuda Triangle, but across multiple continents. Each pulse aligned perfectly with recorded instances of vanishing aircraft. His final message read, "She didn't disappear, she became the signal. At exactly 9:14 p.m. one evening, all air traffic control systems along the Caribbean coast went offline simultaneously for 37 seconds. During that blackout, radar stations from Venezuela to Puerto Rico recorded an identical echo. A single aircraft, cruising altitude, broadcasting Rebecca's voice, reading modern flight instructions perfectly aligned with 1950s call signs. Then, silence. When systems rebooted, a new flight ID appeared on screens worldwide. Lang 914. The plane was moving east, but no destination matched its trajectory. It was flying into open sky, climbing higher and higher. An eyewitness aboard a commercial airliner claimed to have seen it. A silver jet flying parallel, passengers visible through its windows, each staring straight ahead. He described a woman in the cockpit, eyes forward, lips moving as if in calm conversation. When shown photos of Rebecca Lang, he confirmed instantly, "That's her." But the impossible detail. The reflection on her window wasn't clouds. It was stars. Not of our sky, but of one too far away to name. Years later, historians, physicists, and believers would argue endlessly. Was Flight 914 a time loop, a cosmic echo, or a warning from the future? No answer satisfied all. But one truth endured. At 9:14 each night, in perfect silence, an untraceable radio transmission still whispers across the Atlantic. Passengers say, "Flight time, 37 minutes." And for those who dare to listen closely enough, sometimes, faintly beneath the static, a second voice joins in, repeating calmly, endlessly. Cleared for departure. In 2055, exactly 100 years after Flight 914's disappearance, an unexplained aircraft appeared once again over the Atlantic. It broadcasted no distress signal, no transponder code, just a continuous heartbeat rhythm at 942 hertz. The world's media erupted, calling it the Ghost Return. Satellite footage captured its outline for precisely 37 minutes before vanishing without descent. What unsettled scientists most wasn't the reappearance itself, but the cockpit signature, biometric scans matching Rebecca Lang. She had been gone for over 2 decades, yet the data showed her pulse, her oxygen levels, her voice, still transmitting from inside the flight deck. The International Aeronautics Commission initiated Project Afterlight, a joint mission to trace the anomaly's trajectory. Among the data recovered from deep-sea sensors, they found something extraordinary. Layered voice frequencies overlapping in harmonic intervals, like a choir of versions of the same person. It was Rebecca, multiplied. Each layer recited variations of the same phrase. "We landed. We never left. We will depart again." The scientists debated whether it was a distress signal or a form of communication transcending time entirely. One researcher whispered, "She's not lost. She's maintaining the corridor." As governments scrambled to contain the phenomenon, a single message appeared on restricted air traffic frequencies worldwide. Not from the plane, but from within the airwaves themselves. Coordinates locked. Descent approved. The phrase repeated in over 70 languages before fading to silence. Yet, observers across multiple continents reported seeing flashes of a descending aircraft in their skies, always at 9:14 p.m., always vanishing before touchdown. Every report shared one chilling detail: the sound of applause following the silence. By dawn, the anomaly had ceased. All frequencies fell silent, and for the first time in decades, 9:14 passed without a single signal. Scientists celebrated the apparent closure of the loop. But in the private archives of the Aeronautics Commission, one final audio clip remained, an untagged recording received at 9:15 p.m. It was Rebecca's voice, older, steady, speaking directly. "To whoever hears this, do not search for us. We are not gone. We are en route." Then, faintly behind her, came another voice, Captain Brenner's. softly laughing. And so, the story of Flight 914 faded into legend, an echo of the sky that refuses to die. Some say the aircraft still circles unseen, orbiting the thin boundary between past and future. Others believe its passengers became the guardians of the corridor, keeping time itself intact. But on rare nights, beneath clear Atlantic skies, pilots report faint radar contacts moving in impossible patterns, followed by a calm female voice over the comms. This is Flight 914. Passengers safe. Continuing ascent. The transmission always ends the same way, with a single ticking sound, perfectly synchronized to 914.